E-model in crisis management. My name is Laszlo KOZAR. I'm the professor of Budapest Business University. I spent more than 25 years in the business life, parallelly with the university research and educational life. I established the first professional brokerage company in Hungary, which was involved in the commodity and the currency market as a futures exchange profession, the brokerage company. On the other hand, I established the first private public warehouse in Hungary. It was at the beginning of 90s, so I worked in these two places. And beside this, I was active in the gray market as the trader. So these three things together was my last 30 years history, not just in the business life, but in the educational and the research life as well. And I created this E-model a few years ago. Originally, I created it for myself, for business, short-term business decisions. Later on, I extended this for short, middle time and long time business strategies. I would like to introduce it in this presentation. Content of the presentation. The first point is introduction. In the introduction slide, I would like to introduce the subject in a few sentences, an antecedents of the paper, and the professional background behind that, and university background behind that, and what was the reason to create this E-model, and what was the necessity to prepare it at that time. After that, characterization of the commercial methods. Under this title, there will be two slides. One of them will show the way of commodity marketing by public warehousing. It's a figure. I would like to try to explain it during talking about this slide. I will show it. The following one is the way of commodity marketing with short hedge. This is another similar figure, and with these two figures, using these two figures, I would like to introduce this kind of characterization of the commercial methods. After that, I would like to introduce the decision-making model, the inputs of the model, the outputs of the model, the results of the model, and last but not least, conclusions. In the conclusion slide, I would like to talk a few sentences about the whole project, the paper, the article, and the presentation together. Introduction. The main purpose of the research was to raise the prices problem, the application of market institutions, the public warehouse, and the futures exchange, and the presentation of the pre-calculation model. The calculation model can be useful for any participant in the grain business to calculate price information for short-term business decisions and medium-term strategy. The model uses an extensive database, which in addition to the use of the two institutions, can also use the database of all incurrent cost items. This model was prepared by myself for short business decisions at the beginning. I prepared it as a practicing trader and used it day by day, this short business decision part of this. Later, I decided to extend it to different other things, and I extended to use this model for long-term, short-term, and long-term and medium-term strategies. From that moment, I started to use the extensive database. It has online connection with the different companies to collect the different types of costs, just like delivery costs for railways and tracks, whatever. So this is an absolutely active model, so it can be used day by day for these purposes. Characterization of commercial methods. Under this title, I will introduce two slides. The first one is the way of commodity marketing by public warehousing, and the second one is way of commodity marketing with short hedge. I think it's important to understand both of these methods to be able to understand what is the essence of the e-model I created. Both institutes, I mean the public warehouse and the futures markets, are very important part of this model. Way of commodity marketing by public warehousing. In the basic situation, in the distribution channel, there are minimum two participants, the producer and the consumer, but averagely we use middlemen, so traders are involved in the business usually. The producer produces the commodity and sells it, so the commodity goes from the producer side to the direction of consumer side. The financing goes opposite it, because the consumer will pay directly to the producer or through a middleman. This is the basic situation. If we use the public warehousing system and the Lombard credit, we need minimum two other participants. One of them is the public warehouse, who transfers the deposited commodity to security when he issues the warehouse receipt. And the other participant is the bank, who is willing to finance the producer using the warehouse receipt as the collateral of the Lombard credit. So let's watch this system step by step. So the first step, when the producer deposits the commodity into the public warehouse. The public warehouse will close the warehouse and issues the warehouse receipt. The producer goes to the bank with the warehouse receipt and will sign a contract, a Lombard credit contract with the bank. And the bank will pre-finance him with a Lombard credit. This is the first part of this system. Later on, when the producer decides to sell the commodity, it can be only a few weeks later, but it's possible a half a year or more, depending on the business, depending on the situation, when he decides to sell the commodity and the consumer buys it. In this case, the financing comes opposite from the consumer side to producer side. So the money will arrive to the producer directly from the consumer or through the bank or through the public warehouse, depending on the construction. So from this moment, the producer is able to pay the money back, to clear the pre-financing. So he will pay the Lombard credit back to the bank. It will be the fifth step, and the bank will clear the warehouse receipt, so it means that it gives back to the producer. It is the sixth step, and the producer goes back to the public warehouse and ask the commodity back. So the public warehouse will give the commodity back to the producer, directly to him, or to the middleman, or to the consumer, depending on the situation. And this is the last step of this kind of system. We can see that this system gives time for the producer, because this pre-financing gives him the possibility to examine the futures prices, the future selling possibilities, and the deferred sale. So if the price a few months later is higher, looks higher than the immediate price and the costs until this time, he can decide to postpone selling. If not, he can decide to sell it immediately. So depending on the market situation, he can decide what to do. It's a big freedom for the producer, because he's not forced to sell it immediately. This is one of the most important, or maybe the most important, function of the public warehousing. The question is the futures price. Way of commodity marketing with short hedge. In this case, if the producer decides to hedge the futures price, we need, beside the traditional participants such as producer, middleman, and consumer, other two participants. The most important is the commodity exchange, so the futures market, with a clearing house behind, which is the bank of the exchange, and the brokerage company, who is the agent in this example of the producer. Let's watch How is it working step by step? If the producer decides to hedge the futures price, because the futures price is higher than the immediate selling, he can do it. Very easy. The first step to open an account, this is the first step always, to open an account in the clearinghouse and deposit the money to the clearinghouse account. This is the first step. The second, he has to give order to the brokerage company for the future selling. Based on this, the brokerage company will sell in the futures market to the chosen term. We call it hedge or short hedge. It will be an open selling from this moment. Later, when the producer decides to sell the commodity, it can be, I don't know, 3 months later, for example, or 6 months later, whatever, depending on the situation. He decides to sell the commodity, he will sell it on the physical market, directly to the consumer or through a middleman. The commodity goes from the producer side to the consumer's direction. Financing comes opposite this, from the consumer side to the producer's direction. So the producer collects the money from the consumer through the middleman or directly. After that, he can liquidate his position in the commodity exchange, and when he liquidates and clears this position in the commodity exchange, we can say that his position will be closed. So there are two possibilities. If the price in the real market will be lower than the hedged price, in this case the producer will collect the money from the clearinghouse, the price different. If the futures price is higher in the physical market, he has to pay it into the clearinghouse, but the result is the same. In both cases, the producer real selling price will be the decided price at the beginning. So combining this story with the commodity marketing with public warehouse can give the producer the strategy selling in middle term and long term as well. And the model uses both of the institutions in the calculations. The decision-making model. The function of the model is to give up-to-date price information and daily information about price influencing factors for any participants of the market. I mean producers, buyers and traders. Inputs of the model. Primary cost, PC, we use it in case of producer. Purchasing price for consumer, in case of consumer, in local currency. Second, purchasing price, PP, in local currency, or selling price, SP, in chosen foreign currency in case of trader, which means that the trader can use this model to both directions. He can start it with selling price and calculate back to purchasing price, or can start it with purchasing price and calculate back to selling price. Foreign currency, FC, and other inputs connected to storage, inputs connected to public warehousing, inputs connected to financing, inputs connected to commodity exchange, inputs connected to transportation, quality, and health certificates. So the model uses all of this input information for calculations. And last but not least, profit, P, the amount of the desired profit in chosen foreign currency. Results of the model. Outputs of the model. The model uses the information of principal database first. The pre-calculator outputs of this calculation gives immediate information for user, and the final cost and price calculation will be based on these results, as well as other primary inputs. Here in the presentation, I only present the model in outline, partly because of the complexity and partly because of the tight time frame. The article includes details and examples supported by numbers from actual model runs. Conclusions. Conclusions can be drawn based on the article, the written form, and the presentation itself. The purpose of this model is to provide information to all participants in the grain business. The model can present up-to-date information for business decisions based on daily data. Institutions as futures market and public warehouse offer many opportunities for managing price risk. The additional costs of using market institutions cannot be considered as a real barrier to use such techniques. With the help of the model, it is possible to analyze the various price influencing factors and to develop a long-term business strategy based on the opportunities offered by public warehousing and the commodity exchange. Thank you very much for your kind attention.